Hello friends, once again welcome back. In this session on industrial relations, I would like to cover regarding the employee unions and how they existed, how they started their operations. And we have seen actually from 1924 to 1930, around 31, we have seen in the last session. So from there on, we need to catch up. And we will be dividing till 1947 into three different phases. Every 5 years, we will treat them as a unit and we'll be covering them in three different batches. What exactly are the changes that took place in employee unions and what kind of changes were brought into our employee union structure and what kind of you know changes were brought in the legal system during this period. So all these things will be covering in detail. Initially, if you are trying to look at how actual industrialization started, industrial relations started, and the employee union movement started, and how it got shifted from Kolkata to places like Chennai, and then spread on to the west, to the Bombay coast, and how actually that employee union movement took around the entire country. So this makes an interesting reading. And during this time, what people used to call the employee union movements as red dress movements means the kind of red dress what people used to wear is a symbol of revolt. Now, if you are trying to understand why are the employees revolting, whom are they revolting against? We need to understand that employees are revolting not against anyone. Again, it's the kind of injustice that prevailed in the system then. See, much has been, a lot of changes have been brought in ever since. But all the changes were possible because of the kind of great fights which went on between the employee unions, government, and between the employees. See, government intervention many a time has actually neutralized the cases wherein they brought in amendments into the bills, they brought in changes in the system, thereby accommodating a kind of mechanism using which grievances of employees can be addressed. So this was done after initial revolt by employee unions. Thereby, employee unions got that nickname as red dress unions. Red dress means like they are wearing a dress code which is red in color, and the red color actually is a representation of unions who are underpowered, and again stating that they're voting against somebody. So these are things what we need to learn about. Let us look at the first thing, the first 5 years data as such. And the first 5 years data starts at 1935 and goes up to 1938, a 3 year phase. See, at that time, the Indian National Congress uh, was in, you know, power in 7 provinces. But the thing is that, uh, the Indian National Congress has actually was not able to bring in the kind of unity between the trade unions. So as a result, the All India Trade Union Congress, AITUC, uh, got shifted into another thing called as National Trade Union Congress. So National Trade Union Congress also joined the AITUC. That actually added a kind of power to AITUC. It became much bigger. And there are other factors which contributed to the revival of trade unions and making them uh, very powerful, and also made them to fight for the rights and change in the managerial attitude towards trade unions. So all these things were possible because of the merger between the ATUC and the National Trade Union Congress, NTUC. So this joining has become trade union made trade union Congress a very powerful one. So in 1938, one of the most development that took place was the enactment of the Bombay Industrial Dispute Act 1938. See, this act actually came into existence primarily because till then, industrial disputes, there is no particular mechanism to solve them. People are not worried about industrial dispute. They used to think that a dispute in the industry is limited to the particular industry itself. No, it is not. So that was understood later on by the government and by the people who are in power. And in 1938, one of the important things that took place is the induction of the Bombay Industrial Dispute Act, which came in 1938. And the second phase, if you are trying to recall, the second phase starts from 1938, 39, and goes up to 1946. So this is a longer period. What happened then is that um, the mass retrenchment, which was witnessed during the post World War II, led to the problem of unemployment. So this was one of the biggest factors which actually factored in, which actually triggered that creation of the employee union movement. So the employee union movement gained a lot of impetus because at that time unemployment is at a worrying factor, is it a worrying high, thereby, and that has become because of the post-World War consequences. And in order to nullify that, people used to join unions to secure their job. The unions used to fight for the employees. The unions used to stand for the employees and fight for the rights. So that is why union has seen as somebody who can fight for the employees' rights, who can gain them an advantage, who can also negotiate on behalf of the employee for their salaries, etc. So this resulted in a bigger spurt in the membership of the registered trade unions from 667 in 1939-40 to 1087 in 1945-46. So you can actually see the kind of number of unions which were there at the time at 45-46. So almost 1,000 unions existed in the country, and that is a big number. So what actually happened during this phase? So during this phase, two important enactments, namely the Industrial Employment Act 1946 and the Bombay Industrial Relations Act 1946. Both the acts, through their provisions, contributed to strengthen the trade unionism in the country. Mind you, my dear friends, these two acts which came into existence at the time, that is the Industrial Employment Act in 1946, it made sure that employees or even non-employees, people who are waiting on their wings to gain jobs, even they are given prominence, and for them a system has been generated. Thereby, people used to get jobs in a much easier and in a controlled, phased out manner. And the Bombay Industrial Relations Act, which came in 1946, and both the acts actually brought a semblance of justice to people who are looking for a job, and justice to employees who are fighting a cause with the management, and actually made them gave them a ground based on which they can actually fight. So these are important things what we need to keep in mind. The 1946 is the year in which Industrial Employment Act came into existence and the Bombay Industrial Relations Act. And both these things, both the acts came in the year 1946. Now one more thing, one more interesting question which can come up here is why there are so many laws which came in on the name of Mumbai? Why there are so many laws like Bombay Industrial Relations Act and some other act Why all these things are coming into existence? One of the primary reasons being, uh, one of the primary reasons for that is that Mumbai was the industrial center at the time. Mumbai or Bombay at the time it is used to be, right? Is known as the center hub for industries. So if people want to go for employment, if people want employment, they used to go to Kolkata or they used to go to Mumbai. You want a job, go to Mumbai, get a job. That was the standard slogan in those days. So people who are educated, if they're not having a job in their native town or in their native state, they used to go to Mumbai. That's how a big transition took place, and Mumbai became the financial hub of India. So many laws actually are started on the particular name, on the particular city's name, primarily because it houses so many industries, it housed so many companies, and thereby became an important place to bother with. And my dear friends, the third time segment we are looking at is 1947. That is the time at which we got our independence, and from there on, it is a standard phase, and the phase has continued. And we can actually see in this kind of thing that the Indian National Trade Union Congress (INTUC), and that was formed with nationalists and moderates and was controlled by the Congress Party, became the biggest, um, as such, the kind of employee union as such, primarily because this trade union Congress was created by the Congress Party, the party which ruled our country for a long time, around 56 years to be precise, and gained a lot of prominence after all the time. And AITUC at the time is controlled by the communists. So these are very important trade union federations which were existing at the time. One is the National Trade Union Congress (INTUC), Indian National Trade Union Congress, and that was controlled by the Congress Party, basically the kind of ruling party for most of the time, and they used to control this. They used to control all the activities of the particular Congress and trade union. And AITUC, AITUC being known as or labeled as a red dress community, is controlled mostly by communists, and it was also become popularized by their feelings, by their ethics, and their actions and all that. So these are very important trade union congresses, federations, which existed in India at that time. And subsequently, in the year 1948, Hind Mazdoor Sabha (HMS), under the banner of the Praja Socialist Party, came into existence. Now, why there is a need for the third one? Primarily because HMS has, you can actually see, is a split between the socialist and again that separatist association. Means all that INTUC, you know, people, actually that was separated into two things. One is a group controlled or labeled as socialists, and a group and labeled as, you know, basically a separatist union. So basically, all these unions um, are, politicized to a certain extent. They were given the political edge to gain a lot of momentum, so that all the unions has become nationwide unions. They had a spread at the time, and Bharatiya Janata Party, the third emerging power at the time, it started something that motivated something called as Bharatiya Mazdoor Sabha (BMS), and BMS actually can be called as an affiliate of the Bharatiya Janata Party. And the Bharatiya Janata Party actually controlled their operations. Now, one more very strong employee union federation which came into existence, and all these trade union conventions or communities actually had gained a lot of power in some states and fallen apart in some other states, depending on the kind of state rule and the kind of party which was in existence, the kind of party which is ruling a particular state. Also, Union Trade Union Congress (UTUC) and the Center of Indian Trade Union Congress (JNTU) also became very popular. Now, what exactly are all these unions means to us? People, we are trying to recollect all this trade union movement primarily to understand that the kind of employee movement which existed at that particular time, the kind of momentum it had, and leading to so many trade union congresses or federations coming up in India, and the reason why political parties are involving with the trade union congresses, supporting them. So these are things what we need to look at. My dear friends, behind all these things, behind what we're looking at as the trade union movement and the generation of so many trade union congresses, we need to look at that all these trade union congresses or federations are primarily supported by political parties because they know the employee vote bank is a much bigger one. They cannot afford to lose the kind of employee unions at that point of time, because all the political parties are trying to gain ground, are trying to prove themselves as majority parties in most of the states. They are trying to gain ground. They are trying to gain stronghold in all the states, possibly by intervening with or by affiliating with the employee federations. So this is one factor which actually politicized the employee trade unions to a certain extent in India. But that did not actually deter the kind of objectives with which employee unions started, or the kind of movement the employee unions had at that time. Many of these employee unions stood behind their employees, fought for the cause of the employees, fought for their rights, and even fought when people are not having jobs. They helped actually people in getting jobs, in getting a law being created by the system. So, my dear people, the generation or the occurring of the employee trade union federations actually are good, plenty of good for the country. They did a lot of benefit to all the people, to all the employees and their affiliates. So this is where we would like to end the session. And any questions, please make sure that you are posting them in the Google Classroom, wherein they will be collected and they can be answered in the next session. So please make sure that you are collecting all the questions and go through the video a couple of times so that you can recollect the facts and you can share interesting things with what you gained in the next class. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay at home.